Win big with new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all three past performance formats. Go to DRF.com and use coupon code ONEFREEPP for a free single card today.
Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Ashley Mailloux, taking a look at the first of three graded stakes races on tap at Santa Anita, weather permitting, on Saturday. Race number 2 kicks off a 50-cent early pick 4. Let's take a look at the field for some nice sprinters going 3/4 of a mile in the grade 3 Palos Verdes. Only 5 horses in here, 2 big names. The 5 Hopkins, who won this race last year and then went on to Dubai, where he ran a very good 4th, and Big City Lights, who's a horse that's really coming into his own for Richard Mandela.
Yeah, Hopkins did race really well. I know you think about, Bob Baffert going overseas, and that's not shocking, but, he hadn't really been in stakes competition too much prior to that. So to see him race a big 4th like that and then come off the bench to finish 2nd, he's the big name. And as you mentioned, Big City Lights, another very consistent type of 4-time winner with a huge number and effort last time out.
Now, it's a short field and pace could be very, very important. So we'll throw up our Timeform US pace projector, and this could be a big advantage for Hopkins, a horse that got a race off a layoff last time out, now should be really fit second off the bench and could get to the front in a situation that favors front runners.
Yeah, I certainly think so. I mean, obviously, Big City Lights has a fair bit of early foot. It's interesting to see the late pace, the flag on this one as well. But I think Hopkins here potentially, especially with that race last time out under his belt off the long layoff, he could be even sharper out of the gate.
The number 1, the Big Wham, is a quality 2-year-old bred in Washington by California sire Mr. Big. He earned a stakes win at Del Mar against Cal-bred or sired competition. But after that race, the Del Mar Futurity was too tough, and then a long layoff. And he came back. He probably needed that race. I wish he did a little bit more. And now another long layoff and a tough field.
Yeah, you sort of hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the long layoff is one thing, but then to see him on the shelf again, I think that's the bigger concern with endorsing him against a field like this. He didn't find himself in a soft spot. If he was maybe returning to the same race level that we saw him at last time, an allowance optional claiming event, it'd be a different story. But I think, his numbers, they really aren't close to the others in here. And to me, he's too vulnerable off another layoff.
Speaking of layoffs, the number 2, Mystification, we haven't seen him in about 8 months, which is a shame because it looked like this well-bred colt was slowly coming into his own with a win on turf in a maiden race going 2 turns. His race on dirt 2 starts back wasn't bad. I think he'll handle the surface. The question is, will he handle this hike in class and the layoff?
Yeah, that's another big question. I think his number, similar story to the horse on the rail. They just aren't as competitive. And it was interesting. He was able to stretch out around 2 turns, switch to the grass, and that's sort of where the light bulb went on. And at least he found himself in the winner's circle. So I don't think, he drastically improved his numbers. I think the big thing, too, going a mile on the grass, he got to the front. And for that course, I think those are pretty soft fractions all in all, especially for that half, that he just found himself on the lead by himself for the most part. So I don't mind him returning to the dirt again, though, against these other horses, especially the outside 3. It's a little tough.
Big City Lights is the number 3, a really nice caliber. He's never been out of the exacta from 8 lifetime starts, including this victory in an open second-level allowance race going 6.5 furlongs last month. He showed good tactical speed to push the pace. He makes the lead in the stretch, and it looks like for a second he's in hot water, but he always finds a little bit more.
He certainly does. And I think, this was a nice race from him. He was cutting back just slightly to 6.5. So to me, I don't mind him now cutting back to 6. They've done some things with him where he's gone from 6 furlongs, a mile, 7 furlongs, and he's kind of repeated that. I actually prefer him a little bit, I think, at a shorter distance. We'll see if that's the case on Saturday. But I think he's coming here ultra sharp, and he finally was able to turn the tables and get a win after so many seconds. I think that was a improvement and a good thing to see.
Now he's stepping up, obviously, against open graded stakes shows, but he was competitive off the layoff against the Chosen Vron, while a Calbred, he is a graded stakes caliber horse on his best day. So I think he does fit, and he has some tactical speed. See Through It pulled off an upset over Hopkins last time out on January the 19th. We're going to take a look at that race. Now, keep in mind, this was Hopkins's first race off of a lengthy layoff, but See Through It did some pretty good things. He stumbled badly at the start, then settled into a nice spot off a duel, and he's going to grind them down in the stretch.
You mentioned he had to face Hopkins, CZ Rocket. I think the interesting thing to note, he's going to get a 90 buyer speed figure for this effort. And he was 18-1, but he was coming out of 2 turf events. And I think his former connections had seen in the past he had raced very well on turf. Let's give it a shot again. But when you look at his last 3 dirt efforts, I note 2 were at Los Al. He's got some really big figures. He, to me, is almost maybe a little bit better on the dirt. He scored the upset last time out. I think a lot's going to come down to the pace in this race. Is he going to get the same trip? I'm not sure about it. And I do think his rival that was second to him, Hopkins, should be fitter off the layoff.
And we'll talk a little bit about Hopkins, who won the Palos Verdes in pace-pressing fashion in 2023. In the Dubai Golden Shaheen, he did a lot of work in the early part of that race. He got to the inside, turning into the stretch, and then he came off the rail at the worst possible time because that allowed Sibelius to roll right on through to win. It was a game performance. Unfortunately, it took some of the wind out of him because he was away for a while, but that last race likely built his fitness up, and again, a great situation from a pace standpoint.
And I feel like we see this with Bob a lot, where horses will ship overseas and then we don't see them for at least 6 months or so. I know in his case it was longer than 6 months until he returned to the races, but you kind of described the Shaheen beautifully. I mean, to finish fourth against those top three in there, which included Goodnight, Switzerland, and Sibelius. At that time, Sibelius was a machine, right? And Goodnight as well. So I thought it was a really good performance. He probably needed that race last time out, but I don't think when we looked at it, he raced fine. There was nothing wrong with the performance, just probably needed one to get back into race form. And I think he's going to be pretty tough in this field.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 3 Palos Verdes. Hopkins, the horse to catch and the horse to beat, Ashley.
Absolutely. I'm going to use him here. I think the price is going to be extremely short, but as I mentioned, I just think we're going to see an improvement from him. I think he needed a race and he's a consistent type. But when you talk about consistency, completely understand why you use Big City Lights here. The recent form is certainly appealing.
Slightly better price also. He has 2 races off the layoff. Hopkins has 1. And I think, again, he showed his quality 2 starts back in against the Chosen Vron. So maybe he fits. It looks like it comes down to those two, but you don't want to sleep on the number 4, See Through It. It was so good last time out beating Hopkins and might fall through the cracks again. So only a field of 5, but a fun edition of the Palos Verdes, one of 3 graded stakes at Santa Anita on Saturday. Good luck.